All right. So, as predicted, I was sitting on my stop work and I was starting to suffer as a result. I woke up this morning. I didn't get myself a gun, but it definitely felt eaten alive by my resentments. And then by the time I had deleted all my videos, I realized that whether real or imagined, they do have the power to actually kill. All right. So, let's take a look at this. We're at 113 in this Joe and Charlie step study. And I just want to go over here. Let's talk about this for a second. All right. So we're talking about disclosing damaged or unsaleable thinking, getting rid of promptly without regret, because the very thing that blocks us off from God's will. If my thinking is okay, then God can probably direct my will and I can be successful in the business of staying sober. If my thinking is lousy, then God cannot direct my will. And I will probably be unsuccessful and end up broke and getting drunk. So I'm going to do the same thing in step 4 that he told me to do with the business inventory. So we're on page 64, paragraph 3. That would be over here. 1, 2, 3. Whoop, there. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Let's go to the top of 65. Okay. On our grudge list, we set opposite. Each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem or security or ambitions or personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We're usually as definite as this example. Okay, so I'm resentful at the cause and it affects my. All right. So we've learned that we have a threefold disease. We are physically, mentally, and spiritually sick. If I am sick, I would go to the doctor. Whatever illness I will have, certain symptoms that would be readily identifiable to diagnose and treat. If I'm mentally ill, I would go to a psychiatrist. My mental illness would have symptoms too that would make it possible to diagnose and treat. If I'm spiritually ill, I will also display certain symptoms. The big book breaks these down so that we can readily identify them when they appear. So that's 1, resentment; 2, fear; 3, guilt and remorse. So if I want to get rid of what blocks me from God, I will have to get rid of resentment, fear, guilt, and remorse. This is the process we are now beginning. So if those things can leave me ahead or behind, I don't know, and stop being an underlying basis of all my thinking and decision making. Oh yeah, I felt it today. God's will can come in and start redirecting me to better things. This is the prescription the big book has to offer to help you get well. Okay, so here we have our 4th step inventory process. Resentments are the number 1 offender. From these thoughts, our mental attitudes stem all forms of spiritual disease. We are instructed to list all people, institutions, principles with who we were angry or have resentments. What is a resentment? Okay. Webster's dictionary defines resentment as indignation or ill will felt as a result of a real or imaginary offense. Then Webster's refers to the reader to the word anger and gives other examples of this thought or feelings, which include rage, fury, ire, wrath, resentment, and indignation. These words denote varying degrees of displeasure from anger, string, intense, and explosive. The longer lasting resentment, ill will, and suppressed anger generated by a sense of being wronged or being wrong. Okay, so in summary, and broadly defined, we are dealing with a negative or unpleasant thought or feeling caused by real or imagined act of failure to at of a person, institution, or principle. Was it to I don't know. Okay. You get the gist. Person, institution, principle. C. Persons, institutions, or principles may need some explaining. Remember, your area, person, your action or failure to act may very well cause you to think or feel badly. Generally, this is called guilt. Institutions are any group of people, authorities, companies, government agencies, or other organizations. A principle is a basic truth or a natural law. Many of these principles have have happened to offend us because they get in the way of us getting what we think we want or need to fulfill some lack or inadequacy or sense of self. For example, alcoholism is an incurable, progressive, fatal illness. Honesty is the best policy. As you give, so shall you receive. There is no free lunch. When you are disturbed, there is something wrong with you. Live and let live, or forgive and forget. Preparing our grudge list. With the previous instruction in mind, and before proceeding any further with his inventory, a list should be prepared of the people, institutions, and principles which have or now cause you to have resentment as defined above. Certain points to be remembered. If you can remember the resentment, you should list it. Even though you think you are over it, go back through your life. Nothing counts but thoroughness and honesty. 2, a review of family albums, school annuals, previous jobs may be helpful. Some people write a short autobiography of theirs to jar the suppressed memories, but in no way would this take place of the actual inventory. Usually, once you begin writing your grudge list, the heavens open up and names seem to fall out of the sky by magic. I personally like to do it by the way Bill did it, by praying and being still. Let God put the thoughts into your mind. It'll be what you're supposed to be working on at the present moment and not the 1001 distractions in your mind. Your mind is yelling at you. You'll see. 3, throughout the taking of step 5, okay, so that's seeing our part, and at times thereafter, you will recall other people, institutions, principles that have caused you negative thoughts and feelings. You can add them to this list anytime, but do not spend too much time searching your past. Once the flood of names cease, it's time to immediately move on. You'll be doing this again in a year or two. Simply do your best. 1 week per section is more than enough time for someone who is really willing. Others, if they're dragging their feet, maybe they really don't want to do this, in which case the big book suggests sponsors moving on to someone more willing. 4, do not concern yourself with whether you should or should not have the feeling. Just make the list. Nothing more is required of you at this point. All right, so here's part of our assignment. We're going to go to page 65. We're reading paragraph 1 again, and then we're going to 66. Are we doing that? First paragraph? We did the first paragraph. So I'll reread it again. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, security, ambitions, or personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. So we have the I'm resentful at, the cause, and affects my. All right, let's go down to the bottom. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent, was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. All right, so usually when we do this, people traditionally just do it from the big book. They don't do the handouts. And there was somebody on YouTube talking about doing a step 4 or 5 and how important it is to just do it from the book. And that is important too. However, this is really good for prompting a thorough step 4 that institutions would be happy with. Okay. So we talk about jails, institutions, whether that be hospitals, recovery houses, halfway houses, detoxes, that kind of stuff. People, police, okay, military, they do feel a lot more comfortable when someone has done this and can talk and walk the talk. So let's look at this glossary words used in a step 4 and 5. So we have exact, very accurate, methodical, and correct. Okay, nature, the essential characteristic of an object or thing. Wrong, acting, judging, or believing incorrectly. Fault, something done wrong, an error or mistake being the cause. Mistake, to misunderstand or perceive incorrectly. Detect, lack of necessity, incomplete, broken, handicapped. Shortcoming, missing the mark, falling short, lacking ability. Self-centered, preoccupied with one's own self-affairs, at the center of all occurrences to the degree everything negatively affects your world. Selfish, the complete and utter disregard for the welfare and mindfulness of other interests, treating other people, life, time, or belongings as though they were yours to use, waste, and disrespect. Self-seeker, a person who seeks to personally gain from every encounter or situation. Dishonest, the act of lying, cheating, stealing, and the result of insecurity. Fear, a feeling of anxiety, agitation, disease, apprehension over an idea, either real or imagined to be real. Frightened, a temporary or continual state of fear and shock. Inconsiderate, without thought for the welfare of others shown in your behaviors. Notes. If there is ever a word or a concept that you do not understand, know this. You must look it up. You must find out its true meaning, because this will change everything for you. However, be aware that many egos only pretend to know the true meaning of things. They will tell you a skewed definition, so be aware that there is no substitute for doing your own homework. And that's it. This is a really good guidepost. And my first sponsor used to say this: the not the tradition, sorry, the steps keep us from killing ourselves. I don't know if she actually said this, someone else said this. And the steps keep us from killing ourselves. The traditions keep us from killing others. And the slogans are kind of like the handrails of AA. And if the slogans are the handrails, this glossary of words in the step 4-5 is really going to help us get thorough. And because I did this, I actually felt like I was a different person. And of course, we can always slip and go back into this. These are watchwords for me. This is, a list of my liabilities and what I'm capable of and what I need to always watch for. And it's good to know these words when going into this work on page 65. It just really helps to have some prompt words here. Okay, let's take a look at resentment inventory prompt sheet. Here is a list of people, institutions, and principles that may hold the key to some of the latent grudges you've been hiding under the rug. They may also jar your memory of still others that aren't listed here. Add to this list as you see fit. So we got people: father, mother, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, cousin, in-laws, husband, wife, God, Jesus, Satan, clergy, police, parole officer, lawyer, judge, doctor, employer, co-worker, creditor, childhood friends, best friends, lifelong friends, school friends, teachers, acquaintances, girlfriends, boyfriends, AA friends, military, political figures, neighbors. All right. Now we got institutions: authority, church, correctional system, education system, government, military, police, employer, corporations, religions, marriage, mental health system, divisions of government, Congress, DMV, Social Security, IRS, and welfare. Now we got principles: adultery, Bible, death, diet, golden rule, heaven, hell, laws, life after death, no free lunch, original sin, philosophy, retribution, 7 deadly sins, 10 commandments. Remember that these are merely suggestions to unlock a mind that has been sealed shut for almost an entire lifetime. This won't be easy if you're not completely convinced that you must do this in order to live, and that without which you would surely die. Once begun, new ones will certainly come to mind along the way. Ask God to guide you, and you will succeed. All right, let's take a look. I'm going to flip over the page. So here we are. We're back to where we ended, but I just wanted to cover those pages that I'd skipped over while I was going through the Joe and Charlie online. And this is your step for business inventory. It just gives a really good idea of what we're looking for. So this is kind of a prompt, and it really helps us to understand the business of the fact finding. Personally, it's searching, fact facing. We want to be fearless, discover truth because of the moral. It's not just a moral inventory. We need moral psychology, stock and trade ourselves. We thrive off that moral psychology. We really respond to it, as was discovered in the doctor's opinion. So when we do that business inventory, personal inventory, how to be successful in business, how to be successful at making a life, the objective, disclose damaged or unsaleable goods. 2, to find flawed thinking processes, and the purpose, to get rid of them promptly without regret. When I do that on the regular, I'm cleaning house. I'm trusting God. I'm helping others. I'm not in self, right? I woke up this morning, I started bitching away, right? It wasn't worth it. I erased it. Even if it's true, there's nothing like a real, a valid resentment, a justification and rationalization. I have to stay on this. I can't rest on my laurels. I have to go through it no matter what. And if I don't stay connected to it, then I go through those old thinkings where that old thinking that leads me back to old playgrounds, playmates, and playthings. And yeah, so I'm glad I have this. I don't represent AA or NA. I do this private online mental health journal, and I'm just going through the steps right now because I've had issues in the rooms, and maybe it will blow over, maybe it won't. But until then, I'm at home doing this alone, and I'm actually really happy I've had this chance to do this and go through this work again from a nice, safe, quiet space, because it's a luxury problem. And yeah, if I don't drink or do drugs today, I got kindergarten problems, as I've heard someone once say. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I will pass.